Welcome, everyone. Welcome, Yannick Van Doorne. We are so glad to have you for this English language series of lectures on the topic of electroculture and its techniques and applications. So thank you very much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Angela, for inviting me to your group to do this presentation. We will make a cycle of different presentations about electroculture, and we will begin with the presentation of the cylindrical magnetic antenna. That is very practical, very easy to use, very easy to install. And so everybody will already be able to do his first experiments with magnets in the garden and in the fields too. And so each time we will make a presentation about one major technique or different major techniques. And so we will have an overview of most electroculture techniques of the last years that give very good results. Yeah. So I will begin now. So the cylindrical magnetic antenna is the model I will show you. I invented or I developed in 2009, 2010. It is based on old technology that I updated to today. With all I knew, with all the experiments I did, I updated it, I improved it. And so we will see this. Ah, yes, how do I change the slides? Ah, yes, okay. To present myself, I'm already 46 years old now. On the slide it's 45, but so it increases every year. And I discovered electroculture through my curiosity. When I was student, engineer in agriculture, I was naturally interested in all alternative techniques. And then I discovered in the book The Secrets of the Soil, that maybe you know, that is really a fantastic book about all kind of alternative techniques. I discovered things that are about electroculture, even if they don't use the word electroculture in that book. It's also a lot about electroculture, like the round towers, the use of basalt, of paramagnetic basalt, and things like that. And and there was a chapter about the influence of music on plant growth, and the work and the discoveries of Dan Carlson about his technique, the sonic bloom. And then I wanted to do a research about this, about the influence of music on plant growth. And I convinced my professors to do some experiments with that and to do my end-year thesis about this. And this opened my mind about how powerful can have some electromagnetic fields and magnetism and sound waves. And this was brought to me by a scientific article where they spoke. It was a Chinese or Asiatic scientific article that spoke that sound has also electromagnetic influences. And so this awakens my curiosity, and then I wanted to explore more in that field about electromagnetism. And this brought me step by step to electroculture and to how to use magnets on plant growth. So this was already, yes, in the year 2000, so it's already 23 years ago. Time goes fast. So we will see that now. There is, for example, this is a scientific article that is very, very interesting. Magnetic field effects on plant growth, development, and evolution. And in that article, they studied a lot of different science experiments where they increased a little bit the Earth magnetic field, and then they observed that the plants mostly grow better and will increase in germination, will increase in growth, but not just a few percent, but it can be like 20, 30% or even more. And then they did also research about when they reduce a little bit the magnetic field of the Earth. So the Earth magnetic field, so the natural Earth magnetic field, they could isolate the plants from the Earth magnetic field with different ways of doing. And then they observed that the plants grow less, that germination was inhibited, and the plants were more sick or had more disease and things like that. So also the disease resistance was diminished. And that's very interesting because it shows that even just very little magnetic field of very low intensity, like the magnetic field of the Earth, can have huge influence on plant growth. You can imagine that the magnetic field of the Earth is like 2,000 times less intense, than less powerful than the one of a simple weak magnet. So like a ferrite magnet has an intensity of 1,000 Gauss, for example. Well, the Earth magnetic field is only half a Gauss, but it's half a Gauss on the whole surface of the Earth. It's really a very big field. It's very powerful in the way that it's everywhere, that it's really everywhere. And there is also an interesting fact is that the less powerful is a magnet, the bigger is the area of influence. And the most powerful is a magnet, the less is the area of influence. So if you take like a neodymium magnet, it will have really a very, very little influence or on a very little space. But if you take a weak magnet, it will have an influence on a very bigger space, a very bigger area. Like the Earth magnetic field is weak, but at the same time very powerful because it influences a very big area, the whole Earth, the whole planet, and around. And this protects us also against the magnetic fields of the sun and other planets of our solar system in a certain way. Yeah. And so that article is really eye-opening, or really very, very interesting, because it confirms what I told already since 20 years about electroculture and the influence of the magnetic field, or it confirms old articles or old applications from 100 years ago already. So we go further. So those are some extracts from that article. Like an example, on top right, you see exposure to magnetic field values higher than those of the GMF, say GMF is geomagnetic field. And you see, like in the middle, you see beta vulgaris is the red beet, the beetroot. Seedlings, increased root and leaf yield, increased chlorophyll content. So even the chlorophyll is increased. And and you see a lot of influences in that article, like allium ascolonicum, you see on top, increased lipid peroxidation. So it's very scientific things about how it influences the metabolism, for example. So they go really very far, very deep in the understanding how the magnetic field influences plants. And if you see on the picture left, then you see exposure to magnetic field values lower than the one of the Earth, than the geomagnetic field. And then you see that it's mostly decrease or negative growth or increased, or when it's increase of something, it's increased of something that is not so good, like activation of esterases, reduction of growth, alter membrane transport, so it disturbs certain metabolism, things like that. So it's mostly bad effects. And this is very interesting because the Earth magnetic field respond also to certain cycles, like they are like you have solar cycles on the sun. You have also cycles on Earth where in prehistoric times, maybe the Earth magnetic field was had more intensity, and the plants and the animals were bigger and more resistant and were more stronger. And then you have other times where the plants and all living organisms on Earth were weaker and more little. And today we live in a time where the Earth magnetic field is quite low. It's quite low. So that can also explain that as soon as you will increase a little bit the Earth magnetic field, all plants will grow a lot better. And then you have sometimes really plants that become record yields, or will have really will grow a lot bigger, like sunflowers or beetroot also, or rhubarb. There are some plants that are very sensitive to the magnetic field, and as soon as you will increase the magnetic field, I speak about the natural magnetic field, you will see that they will respond very positively by increasing in growth and not only in growth, also in nutrient in nutrient quality and quantity. So we continue. Those are pictures to understand that we live in a magnetic field of the Earth. And that picture shows you that the magnetic field of the Earth, when we speak about the Earth North Pole, in science, in reality, it's a magnetic South Pole, like you see. So that is very important to understand, or to know if you read scientific articles, because in scientific articles, when they will speak about the magnetic South Pole, if you compare with the Earth, it will be what we call in the usual language, it's what we call the North Pole. So, but on scientific definition, it's a magnetic South Pole. It's important because the South Pole, the magnetic South Pole, has an influence of reducing activity, inhibition, and magnetic North Pole has mostly an influence of stimulation. So that can be important if you want to for example, if you want to stimulate your seeds, then it's better to put it on the magnetic north pole of a magnet and not on the south pole, for example. It has two different influences. And at the left, you see that like thunder strikes, things like that. That shows that we live also in an electrical field. So between the atmosphere and the Earth's surface, we have like around 100,000 to 300,000 volt. So it's a lot. But it's not dangerous because there is no amperage or almost no amperage. So it corresponds with around 100 volt each meter high, each meter level. But what we will look for now in that presentation is more the Earth magnetic field. And like you see, the energy comes from the south of the Earth because it's a north magnetic pole, and then it will go on the surface of the Earth to the north pole of the Earth. And so you will understand why we put the wires in oriented north-south, and why we put the magnets at the south side of the wires, is because the energy comes from the south and goes to the north, or comes from the north magnetic pole and goes to the south magnetic pole that is in the north, at the geographic north. So we continue. Yes, on Earth we have the Earth magnetic field, but we have also the electrical field, and in reality it interacts together. So when you have influences in the magnetic field, you will find back frequencies or influences in the electrical field, and also in the opposite way. When you have influences in the electrical field, it will also influences the magnetic field. And the magnetic field is not just a static magnetic field like you have of a magnet. You have also frequencies inside in that magnetic field. And so that's why also you will have a lot less influence just by a normal magnet, but you will have a lot more influence by the Earth magnetic field, because the Earth magnetic field, the natural field of the Earth, is a lot more frequencies and information than just the magnetic field of a man-made magnet. So there's a lot more behind this. And also a lot of things that we also today not understand. We don't understand everything, but we observe that it's very important, and that it has big influence on plant growth. So you have, like, for example, the Schumann waves, that are very low frequency radio waves that you find all over the planet, that are generated every time you have thunder or a storm. It generates those low frequency waves that will travel all around the Earth. It's like the heartbeat of the Earth. And those waves are very, very important for plant growth and for all health of all living organisms on Earth. When you will increase those a little bit, also all plants will grow better. So I will speak about this also when we will speak about the round towers and other techniques, because it influences the most techniques of electroculture too. And yeah, so we will continue. So now a little bit history. Justin Christofleau is one pioneer of France developed a lot electroculture in times between 1918 and 1938, 39. I think he died in 38. And in the beginning, he did antennas like atmospheric antennas, like you see the picture below, that were quite high, like 6 meters high. It's like around 18 to 20 foot high in foot. And he used in the beginning those kind of techniques. And then with time, over time, closer to the 1938, he developed devices like you see the picture on the bottom right, that were completely in the earth. It were like iron pieces that are very heavy, like 4 or 5 kilo heavy weight, and that were digged in the earth and connected with wires, like you see the picture on the top right. And the wires were connected, oriented north-south with the Earth magnetic field, like you see on a compass. And then you use like machines, or you do it by hand to make trenches, or to put the wires in the soil, oriented north-south. In agriculture, you use machines behind the tractor. And this gives me the idea to make the magnetic antenna, is by studying the work of Justin Christophe Low. Because what happens is, as soon as you put wires north-south, they will become magnetized with the Earth magnetic field. Naturally, it's like you connect a piece of iron to a magnet, it will be attracted, but the piece of iron will become by itself also magnetized, and will behave as a magnet. It's like the wire will become a huge magnet, but a very long magnet, you see. That will act as an antenna with the Earth magnetic field. And the piece of iron, like he showed, like a kind of electromagnetic fertilizer on the bottom right, that was very heavy piece, and it was magnetized also in the same direction of the Earth magnetic field. And this will help to increase the magnetization of the wires in a certain way. It acts together as a kind of antenna. And when you put the wires in other directions, then it doesn't work. So that's also a proof that it's not the magnet itself that has an influence, but it's the magnet that will receive the good vibrations of the Earth magnetic field only when you put it in the right direction, and otherwise it will not work. So that's also very interesting to understand. It's like you take a bucket and you want to collect the rainwater. If you put it in the other direction in your garden, the water cannot go in. So you need to respect a certain direction. It's like with a radio antenna. If you direct the radio antenna to the emission, you collect a lot more energy, and you will increase the quality of the radio signal. Yes?
The distance between those north-south facing wires, the distance between them is about 1 meter. What would the distance be?
Yes, we will speak about this a little bit later, but it's around 1 to 2 meters, but in big fields like for agriculture, I advise 1.5 meters maximum. And but in the garden, you can also put even more, like every meter or even every 50 centimeters. If you want, you will even have more effect. But if you do it every meter, it's already very good. In agriculture, where they want to make a more cost effective, or they want to put less wires, then they put every 1.5 meters. But if you put every 2 meters, for example, then you will have a wave effect in your field, because on the wire the plants will grow a lot better, and 1 meter beside it they will grow less. So after 1 meter you will have already like maybe 70-80% less effect. So if you want to have like similar effect on the whole field, then it's better that you put the wires closer together, like a meter. It's very good, or 1.5 meters. An example here, you see that were part of my first experiments with that. It was around 2012 with a new antenna, because before I did the cylindrical antenna, I did other versions with magnets that worked too, but that were not so practical. And then I did this one, like it is today. And you see on the picture left, potatoes, eggplant in front, some tomatoes that are still little growing. And on the right, you see also potatoes and eggplant before. And you see that on the right, it's a lot more little than on the left. So it was the same, two same pieces of land in my garden that I planted exactly the same plants, and on the left there was the magnetic antenna in the soil, and on the right not. So you see a huge difference. So then I had some testimonials, like you see. That was an amazing testimonial on the bottom right, where there was a radish as big as a liter bottle. So really amazing. I never had that, but I have some customers that had such kind of results. Really amazing. I receive a lot of testimonials, and there are a lot of my customers that even had better results than myself with my techniques. So they have really huge results sometimes. So here you see a picture how you can install it. I would advise like on top left and on the top, that are two ways of installing. If you install like number 3 and 4, that's bad. Number 3 works a little bit, but not really, almost not. So it's better not to do number 3. Excuse me, I put on the compass the east and the west on the wrong place on that, but it doesn't change the problem. But so the best way of installing it, it's like number 1, it's just the lines in parallel, oriented north-south, and you put on the south side of the earth the magnet, and the magnet has also to be well oriented in the same direction of the earth magnetic field. But I will explain a little more also after. Yes, how deep do you install it? You can put it just on the soil on top, but you can, but it's even better if you put it in the soil, like 10, 20, 30 centimeters deep, and maximum 50 centimeters deep. Bury it maximum 50 centimeters deep. Why? Because if you put more than 50 centimeters, I did already some experiments like this, then in most cases you will have no results or very less. It's better not too deep. So I would say maximum 50 centimeters. You can also put it on the wires of a row. If you have a row of grape plants or wine plants or trees, or other kind of bushes or plants, you can also put it on connect it on the wire that is connected to the plant. But then the wires or the plantation has to be also oriented north-south, otherwise it will not work. Now in the field or in the garden, you can put the wires oriented north-south, but then what you plant on top of it, you can plant in any direction. It's not a problem how you plant it. You will have that energy in your whole field if you have put the wires and the magnets in the field. What is very wrong to do, or what you don't need to do, it's number 4. When you see the wire is going to the north and then it comes back to the south, that doesn't work. That will cut the energy. If you do a turn like this to the south, it will not work. It will stop the energy. So that doesn't work. Also, if you put a magnet on the north side of the wire, it doesn't work too. Or if you put a magnet on in the opposite way of the Earth magnetic field, it doesn't work too. It will even have bad effects. It will have the effects like you reduce the magnetic field of the Earth, and then it will even reduce the growth of the plants if you do it in the opposite way. So that can be also interesting. If you, an example, in the railways, the railways, the rails, they have discovered that when the rails are perfectly north-south, they have to use 2 times more herbicides to keep the tracks clean of plants. And so we could imagine that we magnetize the rails in the opposite direction, and then it will reduce the plant growth and germination of the seeds and everything. So it can be also interesting for certain applications like this. But the rails, for example, when they are exactly north-south, so they observe they need a lot more herbicides. And that's also that was observed first time in Germany between the 2 world wars. They discovered that it's in some books of Germany. You can read this. So it confirms also that technique, because as soon as you put a piece of iron on Earth, well oriented, it will magnetize itself with the Earth magnetic field. But it's a slow process, and the magnet that we will put to connect to it is in reality also to amplify that process. The wire will be magnetized a lot more rapidly. So we continue. Yes. Yes, I will explain. If you do like number 2, like you see that you have 1 magnetic antenna connected to different wires north-south, then you have to connect the wires together. And then you have a way to connect it to make it work. Because if you don't connect it widely, if you don't connect it correctly, then maybe it will cut the energy, and then it will not work. So the way that Justin Christophe Lowe show in his book is those ways. So you just take the wires and you put them together like this, because in that way the wire doesn't make a U-turn, so it doesn't cut the energy. And the same on the bottom, you see the wires are like connected, and then he put a second wire that connects the two wires together to transmit the energy. Otherwise, it doesn't transmit very good the energy. Or you have also, if you have like wires above the plants, and you have the different levels of wires, you can connect them like you see on the picture on the right. So we continue. So that was that piece of garden I showed previously. So I digged 2 trenches like this, like you see on the picture on the right on the bottom, and then I put the wires and the magnetic antenna. So it's as easy as that. It's a little bit of work in the beginning if you install your garden, but when it's installed, it will stay in place like for maybe 5, 10, 20 years, or maybe 50 years. So you will have results all your lifetime when the wires and the magnets are in place. You will already see the first results very rapidly. The first year you will already see results, even the first weeks, and those results will increase the first 3 to 5 years. It will only increase. You will have only more and more results in most cases. Now, every year the climate is different. You have other stresses, other problems in the garden, but globally it will increase the results, and then after 3 to 5 years it will like be stable, and you will have similar results continuously. So very interesting. So here you see again a picture with, for example, with the magnetic antenna on the bottom right, and the compass. So if you want to be sure you put it in the right direction, you just follow the compass. So the compass will point to the north, and you just need to put a wire in the same direction and to put the magnet in the same direction. If you put the magnet in the opposite direction, then the compass will flip to the other direction, and it has not to flip, it has to stay in the same direction of the Earth magnetic field, and then you are sure that you have put the magnet in the right direction. Yes, how it is built, but maybe I show you here. Do you see me in the, yes, in the image? Yeah, okay. Maybe I can flip the image bigger. I don't know if I can do that.
I have made you equivalent with the screen.
Yes, okay. So, so that is the magnetic antenna that I make. And now, how is it built? A lot of people asking me that every day. So I showed it in different videos already, yeah. And when I organize workshops, I also then mostly in most workshops we do that all together also. So in reality, it's a cylinder of different magnets like this. There are 6. I have 6 magnets like this. All magnets. You can take a bigger or more little magnets. It will work too. So, and why a cylinder? Why with a hole inside? Because then it's a lot more easy to connect. You just have to put the wire inside like this. If it's not with a hole, then you have to connect the wire. For example, you can put it close like this, stick on it. It will also work. Or you can put it just by touching it like this, but you have to be sure it's in contact, and it will also work. Yeah, so if you are in Africa, you don't have much magnets, you can take magnets out of loudspeakers or whatever, what you can find of magnets, or magnets that you have on your fridge. You can use them too. The most important is that you put them in the right direction and orientation. You will have already effects with just magnets. But my antenna, I put also beeswax around. I will explain why. That will also increase certain effects. But just with magnets, you will already have huge effects. And yes, and why do I put 6 and why not just one magnet? The problem, if you put a little magnet like this and just one, then very rapidly in the soil it will move, and it will move in other directions with soil, with the frost and the winter, and the soil moves a lot in all kind of directions. And then when the magnet will move in other direction, then it will not work anymore. So it's very important it stay in the same direction. So to do that, you make it longer. You make it longer that it will stay in the direction, and horizontally also. And so to make it longer, my idea was just to put different magnets together, all together, to make a cylinder, But you could also, for example, take a piece of iron that make it longer, for example, and it could also work. But you need to be sure it stays horizontally and in the north-south direction. So the easy way I found, it's or my intuition, I would say, it's also intuition and feeling, and it's knowledge, but also intuition and feeling. So sometimes you do something. That's Les Brown that say that in his conference also. Les Brown is a specialist about pyramid energies and how to use it on plant growth. And he say in a conference, sometimes I know something, but I don't know how I know, or I do something, but I don't know why I do it. But I know it's like this, that it works, and not differently. But you cannot explain always why. You have certain scientific facts, like I explained you in the beginning of the presentation, and then you have also a part of intuition. And yes, I have a lot of intuition, feeling, and sometimes I see that when I do experiments, if I don't feel it or I do it differently and I don't feel it, then it doesn't work. And even if in theory or scientific it must work, it doesn't work. and sometimes you change things because you feel it right, and then it works even better, but you cannot explain really why. So we are also like antennas, I would say. and some have good antennas with good inspiration, and some not. So so then I make a cylinder of 6 magnets, and then I put them in beeswax. And why do I put them in beeswax? Is because when you take a magnet, you take the North Pole, for example. So the North Pole is what I indicate with red spot, or when you have a magnet and you have a red spot or a red side, it's always the north magnetic pole that is showed in red. And so if you take a magnet and you take, for example, a glass of water, or imagine it's inside it's oil or butter, and you take a piece of rubber or plastic. Well, the magnetic field will go through the plastic or through the rubber or the wire or the tire, the rubber tire of a bicycle. If you put it in your mouth, it's very bad taste. So imagine that bad taste. Well, the magnetic field will go through the tire in the oil, and after a few hours, if you will take the oil and smell it or eat it or the butter, you will smell the taste, or you will taste the taste of the rubber or of the tire. Even if there is no molecule inside of the tire, the magnetic field will have take the fingerprint or the electromagnetic frequencies of the molecules that compose the rubber, and will have recorded like a record on the oil or on the butter. It works very well with everything that is with oil or butter, that is with lipids, and so that's why I use beeswax, because beeswax is very healthy, is very good, and then the magnetic field will go through the beeswax and will transmit all the good frequencies you can find from the molecules composed of the beeswax, and it will transmit it to the wire. You have, so the wire with the magnet will be a radio receiver of the Earth magnetic field, but then I put a nice music of the beeswax on it. The good frequencies of the beeswax. Like beeswax, if you smell a real beeswax or the smell of honey of the bees, it smells really very good. You can only be positive when you smell this. You feel nice, you feel good. It's because that smell really makes you feel good. Well, maybe it makes feel good the plants too. So that is the idea behind this. So we will continue. So here again, a picture with a compass to show how the compass must show in that direction, like you see on the image. When people ask me how to install when you are disturbed about what is the north and the south and everything, just take the compass as a reference, as a reference, and then you cannot do it wrongly. You just have to follow the compass. So you first measure with the compass the natural Earth magnetic field, and then you put the wire and the magnet in the same direction. You just do it like this. Yes, we'll continue. So it's just the picture. Yes, over time, when you put the magnet with the beeswax in the earth, sometimes the beeswax will decompose, or the ants will eat the beeswax, or things like that. It's possible. Or if it's in the sun, maybe it will melt if it's very hot. a very hot day, but in Canada or in France, in north of France, it doesn't happen, but normally not. But in the south of France or in Africa or where it's very hot, it can happen that the beeswax will melt. That's not so a problem. There will always be a little beeswax over on it, and it will continue to work. And even if there's no beeswax, like I told, you will still have the effect of the magnetic field itself that will also work and will also increase already a lot the effects. The beeswax, it's like an optimization or a plus that will even improve in the beginning. It will boost the effect or the good effects on the plants. So that was with my daughter when she was like 3-4 years old, I think, or 2 or 3 years old. And she helped me to install at the friend's greenhouse some antennas. Now she is already 8 years old. It's very nice to see. So it's very easy, and that was a greenhouse that was already oriented north-south, so it was easy to install to make the trenches and to install the wires. If your greenhouse is in other directions, then then you put the trenches in the other directions in oriented north-south, and it will be like maybe through the greenhouse in other directions. It's a lot more difficult to do, but it works too. You do it on time, and then afterwards you don't need to do it anymore, so it's not really a problem. If the greenhouse is oriented north-south and you have wires on top of the greenhouse, you can also connect to the magnets. It will also have effect on the wall energy of the greenhouse too. So here's some testimonials, some examples. Here you see on top 2 rows of potatoes. There's 1 row on the right, 1 on the left. And then you see how it grows over time. And you see on the bottom and on the right that the row on the right become a lot bigger than the row on the left. They were around like 2-3 feet away from each other. The row on the left has also some influence of the wire because it's quite close, but you see that it's already a lot more little than on the right. If it was even more far away, it would be even more little. Then the difference would be even bigger. But it's already a big difference on already 2-3 feet away. Another example on sunflowers. I seeded exactly the same amount of seeds on the left and on the right. You see the wire on the right. I just put it on top of the soil to show, because if I put everything in the soil, then the people don't see it. It's just to show that it works also and to make it more easy for experiments. And you see that there were a lot more sunflowers that germinated, and there were, when they grow, you see that they are generally a lot bigger than the one on the left. You see also the difference with how to name this, the slugs that eat the plants or the little plants. Well, on the left, probably the slugs have eaten also more of the sunflowers in the beginning of the growth, because the slugs will eat mostly the weaker plants first. And so with electroculture, you will see that the slugs eat a lot less your plants if you have slugs. That's very interesting, because the plants, if you transplant them, for example, then they are weaker temporarily. Then the slugs like to attack them or to eat them. Well, with electroculture, you will see that they will grow a lot quicker, a lot better, and the slugs will attack them a lot less, and they will preferably eat the plants that are weaker, and it's just simple as that. Now, yes. So here you see again the image. You see it even better. Yeah. So you see on top right the image of the magnet connected with a wire, where you can have like trees or fruit trees or different or grape plants, wine plants. So that can be used, but that is only possible if it's planted north-south in that application, like you see on top right. Here, this is in Brazil, where there is a French guy that that knew about my work, and then he took some of my magnetic antennas, and he put it on the row of banana plants, of banana trees that you see on the right. And you see that the row of the banana trees in front on the left, they are a lot more little than the one on the right. The only difference was the wire with the magnetic antenna. So the growth of the trees was a lot faster. It was increased with the magnetic antenna a lot more. If you imagine a whole food forest like this, well, the food forest after 5 to 10 years will produce more than double with electroculture than without. So, and it's the same work to do it. It's just at the beginning, you install the antennas and it's done. An example, you see on the picture below, in the middle, you have is a zone with the magnetic antennas, and when you go on the sides, you see banana plants a lot more little. That's without. That's without. So it's a huge difference. In the middle, it's like a rainforest. It's completely covered and completely full of bushes, and on the right, it's still growing, but there's still a lot of place because it grows very slowly. Another example on Brussels sprouts, you see it's another dimension, another between the left and the right. It's completely different. So for the same work, for example, if you do permaculture or other ways of doing your garden, anyways, if you will put with it some electroculture techniques, you will see your results really increasing a lot in all kind of ways of doing agriculture. Even farms that use chemicals, if they put electroculture techniques with it, they will also increase the growth of their plants and the resistance of their plants, and then by time they will reduce the use of chemicals because they will not need it anymore, because they will just not, the plants will become stronger, they will have less disease and less. It's also a very good technique to do when farms want to do transformation to more organic ways of doing agriculture. They can use electroculture techniques to still increase their yields and their quality and the resistance of their plants, and bit by bit or directly stop with the use of chemicals. In the beginning, mostly they are afraid to stop the use of chemicals because they are afraid that the plants will not grow anymore, or that they will become all sick and that they don't have solutions, or they don't know how to do in other ways. And there, electroculture can help really a lot. Yeah, if I would be an advisor of an agricultural department of a land or a country in the world, for sure, I would advise to give electroculture courses in the schools already, and advise all the farmers to implement on 1 hectare or a piece of their farm electroculture techniques. It doesn't cost anything almost. It's just you have to do it, and then they will see the results, and then by themselves they will change and they will do it everywhere. Because when you have more results, then you just want to have more results everywhere. You are not when people that don't do it, it's just because they don't know about it's just this. That's why it was censored in the past, and but it's a whole other story of political and society that we maybe can speak in another presentation more about the history of electroculture. So here you see an example about that's parsley. That was to a farmer that has 3 hectares where he put the magnetic antennas. And you see the parsley on the left with electroculture, with the magnetic antennas, and on the right without. You see that they cover already the whole field on the left, and not on the right. You see still the earth through it because it's not fully covered, because it grows more slowly. And when he did the yields, he had like 35% more active nutrients in the parsley. The plants, he had like 30 to 50% more yield, if I remember, but there was like 35% more essential oils in the parsley. So the plant was bigger, but also more denser. There were even more nutrients inside. And that's completely the opposite as with chemical fertilizers. With chemical fertilizers, or with NPK, with I don't remember now the name, but it will come back. But with chemical fertilizers, the plant become bigger, but they are like full of water. They dilute. The plant will then fill itself, the cells, with water to dilute the toxins, and then with chemical fertilizers. So it's a completely opposite what happens, and the plants become weaker. And as soon if you take a lettuce in chemical that grow chemically, or with a lot of chemical fertilizers and sprayers and spray products and everything, then after a while in your fridge, it will rot and it will smell really badly. But if you take a very good organic lettuce, then over time it will not rot. It will just dry out. It will just dehydrate, but it will not rot because the energy is good and the nutrient content is good. And that's an example, huh? But we see that always over and over. So this was installed like in 2019. Now we are already 3 to 4 years further. And that same field in the past, it was already since more than 20 years used in chemical farming with chemicals. There were no any earthworm anymore in the fields. And now in the field with the magnetic antenna, the earthworm came back. Now in those fields, they have again earthworms. It's full of earthworms. But in the other fields where he didn't do electroculture, there's still no earthworm. Huh? So it's really the life comes back also in the soil. For me, the earthworms are like the big fish in the ocean. It's like the whales, you see? The whales eat very little plankton that eat very little bacteria and cyanobacteria of the ocean, and that grows from just the minerals of the seawater and the light. And then at the end, you have very big whales. Well, the earthworm is like the whale of the earth. As you have in the beginning, you have just the earth, the sun, the magnetic energies, and the energies of the earth. And then you have a microorganism that develops and the minerals. And then you have a lot of little insects and a lot of a bigger organism and the earthworm. And if something is killing life, then the earthworm disappear. It's one of the first to disappear, like in our oceans. When we kill life, the whales disappear in a certain way because they don't have food anymore, or not the good food. So we continue. Here you see that's the scientific chart of the essential oil content of the parsley. And you see the difference. Without the magnetic antenna on the left, it's around 0.20% essential oil, and after distillation, and on the right, it's like 0.25. So it's 5% more, at 0.05 more than 0.20. So it's around 1/5, or yes, 1/5 more. So when I calculated, it's around 35% more essential oil. And in weight, it was, the weight was 12.5% more, and in volume, it was 17% more. So the farmer had like a bigger yield in weight, but also more nutrient dense yield. So it's very interesting. Another example, it was in the same field, but another year. That was the year after, or 2 years after. You see on the left the field with the cauliflowers. You see that the color of the leaves is like not very green. It's green, but not so green. Don't look so healthy. And on the right, that was with the magnetic antennas, and there you see that the field is really green, very healthy green, very shiny. So it's a big difference if you have a whole field like this. So that was in 2020. So it was a year after the parsley. The year before it was parsley. So that's my daughter in the beginning with a nice cauliflower from the garden. So it's a very funny picture because she was so little and her head was a lot more little than the cauliflower. It was really amazing. Yeah. She still likes to help his father in the garden. She is always with me in the garden. So here you see how you can install practically in fields the wires. When the farmer still plows, it's a little bit problematic, because if they plow deeply, then they cannot use that technique, because you can only put the wires maximum 50 centimeters deep. So if they want to plow, the best is not to plow. But if they want to plow, then the best is to plow only at the surface, not too deep. And to use other ways of doing agriculture. But with the new ways of doing agriculture without plowing, there are more and more farmers in France and also elsewhere that do not plow anymore and just work the soil very on the surface. And they have also good results, and they use a lot less fuel, so it's very interesting for them too. And if they use the right techniques, they can have really as much results as with plowing. So now to come back to the Earth magnetic antenna, you see a kind of machine they can use. First, I make holes on the south side, like you see on top on the left with a machine like this. I make holes in the soil. That's where we will put the beginning of the wire with a magnetic antenna. So it's to connect then the magnetic antenna in the soil. And then with the machine behind the tractor, we put a roll of galvanized steel wire. Yes, for this technique, it needs to be galvanized steel wire. It doesn't really work with aluminium or with copper. For this technique, it has to be galvanized steel wire. Why? Because galvanized steel is ferromagnetic. It will conduct the magnetic fields that copper will not conduct it like this. Copper is also very interesting, but for other techniques, but not for this technique. For this technique, it's better galvanized steel. And because it's ferromagnetic, and copper is diamagnetic, it's different. And so the steel will not move when you use machines. Sometimes people say in electroculture fields that it's not good to use iron because it will disturb certain energies. It's true and false at the same time. It depends what you do. It's true that machines in iron disturb the energies. And how I see it is that it disturbs the magnetic field, because iron is ferromagnetic, and if it's magnetized in a certain way and you will move with a magnet above a field, you will disturb the magnetic field, and then you will disturb the energies. But if you put iron fixed like the wire and you don't move it, then it will not disturb. Then it will increase the magnetic field. You see, it's the opposite effect. It's like you have a cassette of the past for sound, or a CD or something like this, or your computer, and you take a strong magnet and you put over it, it will erase all the information of the USB stick or the computer. It can, if it's a strong magnet. Well, you can imagine that when you have a field, you have a kind of living energy information of the Earth magnetic field, And when you will disturb it, you will disturb also the life force and the growth of the plants. So, but there are ways to neutralize that bad effects of the iron, but we will speak about this later. But now for the, if it's just to install, it's not, you go with a machine in the field, you cannot do differently, so it works well. And then the wire will be installed for always, so it will not move anymore, and it will have very good effects. Yeah. So you have like a kind of a cultivator with it, like a kind of teeth that goes in the soil, and like yes, like a kind of teeth like you see behind the tractor. And then you have like a tube that is welded behind the teeth, and that will conduct the wire deep in the soil at the level you want, at the depth you want in the soil. You can regulate this with your tractor or with the length of the teeth. And then you put the teeth in the hole that you have digged before with the machine. And then you fix the wire, you put the antenna, and then you drive with the tractor to the north. And then automatically the wire will conduct and will be installed inside under the soil. So you don't need to make trenches in the field then on that way. Maybe we will invent a little machine for gardens too, but otherwise you just make a little trenches. But you can also invent a little machine or ways to do. You can also take, if your soil is very easy to work, like sand, or like very not too much compacted and humid, then you can take like a tube, like an iron tube, and then you put a wire in the tube, and at the end of the tube you make it flat, that it's like a knife going in the soil. And then you can I would show that one time in a little video. That's a guy from Germany that invented that idea with the tube. And then you do the wire in the tube, and then you can put it inside the soil without making a trench. Like a knife that will like that teeth from the tractor that will go in the soil, and that will install the wire. It's also an easy way to do it if it's for a garden. But it's nice to install. Oh, we are already at the end. So yes. So thank you for listening to all. And here you see my internet site. The first one I don't use anymore, but the second one, electroculturevandoorne.com, is my main internet site, where I have also a shop if you want to get some antennas. I deliver also all over the world, also in US, Canada. And if you want to make yourself, I explained also how you can do it with magnets and with wire. And so you can also do. And if you want to support myself, I will have books that will come out, and also I have a lot of material about electroculture on my site. Voilà, that's it. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.